Just let us know when you're ready, Steve, and we'll start the recording. And
I just need to say my. Yeah, we had a little bit slower, lower participation today. Anyway, just letting you know we're UL happy to provide a facility. Just simply ask that you respect the fact that we are a working lab, we are a working third-party certifier, and thus there are some probably very various things that are out there that are proprietary and other manufacturers would not be thrilled with anybody looking at over their shoulders and all that. So I appreciate if you would respect that. There's for restrooms, it's simply it's out that door, and they're against that wall. Ladies first, men second over there in the corner, and that. If there's any questions about any other needs you have here, please let me know. From last time even is that because I recognize my handwriting. That's the internet connection for you guys. Please put your cell phones on silent. I was almost going to say stunned, but that would not be correct. Or turn it off. If you get a call, please pick it outside. I would suggest that the best thing for you, so that you're not bothering either in here, and you can have a little privacy, as well as not disturbing guys that are out working out here, is if you go over into that corner, towards that corner, you'll find that there is double doors into a break room, so you can go in there and use that. Exits are clearly marked. There's a quick way out that way. Obviously, if you go one of those two routes, it's going to take a little bit longer to get to the outside. I think I did it. Thanks.
Good. Thank you, John. I want to welcome everybody to the meeting. Purpose of today's meeting is to go over some of the SEAC task groups, give you an update on what has happened in each of the task groups. We're going to hold, hopefully, a final vote on the approval of the white paper. It was the white paper that was presented at the Calvo ABM last month. We'll hold a vote for the approval of the 2016 CEC PV requirements. There will be a presentation on the discussion of AC disconnect requirements, and we'll go over some of the priority requirements for 2017. And Lindsay has something for us on that. One thing about the agenda is coming out to each of you from CSE. Make sure that you go into your email and make sure that CSE isn't getting blocked from your email delivery system. It's not coming as a SEAC document coming right from SEAC. So again, your agenda was sent out by CSE. So go ahead and make sure that you have that taken care of on your email.
Excuse me, is there a subject line or a full email that I can search? Because I didn't get the agenda. I'm looking at my junk mail right now.
Jeff, do you have a copy?
Sorry, just a subject line or something I can search in my junk box rather than just
the subject is SEAC/meeting invitation and final agenda, April 20, 2017.
Coming from events at interviewcenter.org.
Talk to maybe one other person this morning to see that's what it looks like.
It didn't go into my junk.
It may not be arriving in everybody's email box. We'll have to work on that.
We will definitely look into that. Our apologies, everyone. That's not acceptable, we will definitely fix that.
So today a little bit, when we talk about some of these papers, we're going to talk about, I want to talk on the subject of document layout, making sure that our documents have a very similar layout, kind of like branding. We want everything that comes from SEAC to look like it comes from SEAC and has a very standard layout. So we're going to talk about those on the documents that we're working now with the task groups. Kind of going back and looking at some of the documents we produced a year and a half ago, maybe following that template, but we need to come up with a template to follow on all the documents going forward. So again, I want to welcome everybody. Let's start with self-introductions. My name is Steve Jones. I'm the chair of SEAC, and I'm from the city of Oceanside. I serve as the assistant building official.
John Tacker, UL.
Sonita, Infotech.
I'm Mark Baldessari from Enphase Energy.
Lindsay Haas with the Center for Sustainable Energy / SoCal Ren / LA County.
Jim Cahill with Solar City.
Chris Fox, SunPower.
Israel Juarez, San Diego Gas and Electric.
Brian Hoffman from Hawaii.
Justin Olsen with Verdi.
Ben Eric with CSC.
Jack Ulrich with SEAC.
Thank you, Jack. Can we have those online introduce themselves?
This is Alan Fields with Longevity.
Hello, Alan.
B. Jackson on there?
Charles Picard from Tesla also.
Welcome, Charles. And that looks like it. So you have the agenda before you. Is there anything that anybody would like to add to the agenda? Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
A second.
Okay.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor of approval of the agenda as it's presented, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And it passes. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn the announcement time over to Lindsay.
Thanks, Steve. So I wanted to give everyone a just really quick update in the spirit of transparency. As I think all of you guys are aware, hopefully from our last meeting, SEAC has been more or less adopted by the Southern California Regional Energy Network, which is administered by Los Angeles County. Los Angeles County basically gets funds from the Public Utilities Commission to run all of their different energy efficiency related programs. So SEAC is one of those programs or projects. And about a month and a half ago, the Board of Supervisors at the County of Los Angeles basically put SoCal Ren programs on hold. They indicated to their staff that they needed to be brought up to speed on all of the different programs that the county is running and all of the different funding sources that the county is using to run those programs, and has asked staff for basically an update on all of the working moving parts within the program. And until the board receives that information and feels comfortable with it, they have basically put contracts for the consultants that are doing the work of those programs on hold. And so CFP basically at the beginning of March more or less ran out of funding for this effort from LA County. However, CFP, recognizing the value of this group and the benefits that your work here at SEAC brings to this industry and to our community, goods and standards, we didn't want to see all the great work and the momentum that's been building this year all, beef or not. So we've been more or less trying to keep the effort alive with our own funding for the last month and a half. We're working with LA County staff to get them the information that they need to get to the Board of Supervisors to make the board comfortable with all of the different program mechanics. And I am cautiously optimistic that the board is going to get what they need in a relatively quick fashion, and that we'll be back under contract. But this is the reason that Paula has been MIA. Basically, when they pulled our funding, we're happy to keep ourselves afloat as best we can in the interim, but unfortunately we had to put Paula on hold as well. But our intention is that once we're back underway with the county, Paula will be back as well, and everything will be moving smoothly back to normal. So I didn't want to let everyone know this right away because I was wanting to play out and see what would happen. Now that we're at our in-person meeting, I figured it was as good a time as any to share this information with you all. So we will definitely keep you posted as soon as we hear anything from LA County in terms of contract and funding and the future of what it looks like from SoCal Red's perspective.
So in the interim, I'm assuming that we will continue to act just as if nothing is happening at that end, and that to just continue forward.
Yeah, I think that's the best bet. I mean, like I said,
So there's no reason to let's do a screeching stop.
No. No, and that's the reason, CSE that's the reason we've kept ourselves on here, is because we didn't want any of this to come to a screeching halt. And again, I'm letting you know this in the spirit of transparency so that we're all on the same page, but our intention is to keep this going as long as we can, and ideally, the situation at LA County is resolved, and in the meantime, we can absolutely continue on business as usual.
So I, for one, greatly appreciate that dedication to CSEs, and I think it's very laudable, and I think it's very, and I also appreciate your being transparent on what's going on, and I'm glad that we don't have to worry about that. That worry is on your shoulders, not ours. And I think it's important that we appreciate that.
Thank you, John.
Because I know you're doing it in good faith, which is a great thing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Honestly, we're thrilled with the work you guys are doing. So it's not for you all. Honestly, I mean, like I said, we really see the value in this group, and we want to see it continue to move forward. And pulling the rug out from under this group after we just started to build that strong foundation again would be detrimental, and we don't want to see that happen. So
we're tired of rugs.
Yeah, I'm sure.
How can we help? Can we write letters of support about the good work we're doing and the direction we're going? Any way? Because it's a new type of group in the industry, being as cross-functional and across various different stakeholders, that it might be hard for people to wrap their minds around the value of this group. They're certainly huge value.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think first step in terms of helping at least get past this first hurdle is later today during our discussion around 27 priority topics, really engaging and helping us as a group figure out where we want to go for the rest of the year, and taking a meaningful approach to including some sort of energy efficiency related component into this group, because really that is one of the sticking points right now, is that these are ratepayer dollars, and so we need to use them appropriately, and they're not intended to be used on solar codes and standards, quite frankly. So, I don't mean to say that we need to drop our solar agenda at all. That's not what I'm saying, but we do need to incorporate an energy efficiency focus. So if I can get your buy-in and your participation in that conversation, that's an excellent first step. Beyond that, if there's someone at the board or someone at LA County that would be a good recipient of some comments or letters or anything like that, and you're willing to do that, I can find out who that would be, whether it's board members or staff.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
Sure. That was a great question. And in fact, I was just thinking that when you said that, Chris, about if I could write something, it would be is what SEAC value is to me and to what we do. And but it would be helpful to know where we should be pointing that. And I'm presuming that, and also it'd be helpful to know not only who to point it to, but also to who we should be copying as well.
Okay.
And if there's any hearing or meeting where maybe some presence would be valuable as well, that we could know.
Okay. Yeah, perhaps there's going to be a board meeting where they review staff reports and deliberate.
And even if we don't get up and talk, at least, the point could be made, there are several members of SEAC that have invested a considerable amount of time and effort in this and are seeing value to this, and thus are very anxious to see them make decisions that you want.
That'd be great. I will follow up with everyone on that opportunity if it exists. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Lindsay. Item number 4, update on the task groups. We have the energy storage system task group work. I don't know if Mustafa's online yet.
If Mustafa can't chime in, then I can probably talk about the plan check checklist and correction checklist. Okay.
Can you announce
I guess he is.
your name?
Oh, this is Alan from Longevity. So we're the group is pretty happy with the plan check checklist. We hope to be sending that out to everyone for their review shortly, as the group is pretty happy with it. The correction checklists, we're looking at about being 80% done at this point, getting closer and closer. So we're hoping to have a draft for folks to look at by the next monthly SEAC meeting.
Alan, this is John Taggart. Could you provide just a little clarity as to what the 2 different documents do?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so so just a little refresher, the plan check checklist is intended to be a document that an authority having jurisdiction can provide to installers that says what kind of documentation or how their plan sets should be drawn up, just what kind of calculations should be shown, what kind of clearances shall be shown, just what an installer needs to provide. Yeah, what is needed to obtain a permit. Whereas the correction checklist is intended for the use of a plan checker to be able to go through a plan review and cite certain things from this correction checklist in a corrections list that they would issue to an installer if not enough information was provided, or if something was done or designed not in a code compliant way. So it's mainly supposed to be used by a plan checker to be sent to an installer or contractor. So it's a lot more code based as opposed to the plan check checklist, which is mostly just citing a bunch of things that should be shown or mentioned, whereas the correction checklist is much more in the weeds as far as code references for everything and stuff like that. So that's most of the reason why it's been taking so long. But we're hoping to have it done and ready for a draft review by the next meeting.
Alan, this is Lindsay. Is the plan check checklist intended for counter technicians or other building department staff?
It could be. I guess it might be a little bit difficult for most permit technicians because it does go into saying stuff like, please, or show this calculation. So if a permit technician doesn't exactly know what that kind of calculation would look like, then they might not be able to really utilize it. But I guess with some training, it probably could.
But the primary audience or user for the advanced checklist is applicants. Am I understanding that correctly? Sorry, I have to.
No, that is correct. Yeah, it's mainly geared towards applicants.
Great, thank you.
Kind of giving us a minimal submittal requirement.
Right.
Alan, do you have anything else to add on that? When do you see completion of the work?
Sorry? Sorry, that kind of broke up for me a moment.
Yeah. How far are you in the completion of the document? And when do you see the completion of that document?
Which document?
Well, the plan check checklist.
Plan check checklists. Well, so the submittal checklist we're pretty happy with, and we'd like to send that out to the group for their review. If the group doesn't have like the general SEAC group, when I say that, if the general SEAC membership doesn't have any comments for it, then the plan check checklist is more or less finalized. And then for the correction checklist, we're looking at about 80% completion and being done by the next meeting.
I have a process question. This is Chris Spots, SunPower. I'm having a hard time internally at SunPower getting folks involved in these task groups just because of bandwidth. And so I'm wondering and this is just what's the protocol because I'm kind of new. Is it possible for me to take one of these Word documents, pass it around, and do a review internally, and then provide comments on the Google Doc, Alan? That would mean I'd have to actually take the document out of Google Drive, which I've been hesitant to do because it's not done yet, right? And so from a document control standpoint, what's our policy, if any, to do that? I don't think I'm going to be able to get people into a meeting to review with me either. And I'm not the subject matter expert at SunPower on this topic. So what do we do?
So my suggestion on this is twofold. One is that I do it because, well, I've been doing that all along.
I mean, I can control it.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I figure it's within my company. I'm the one who's making the comments, but certainly I'm letting others within the company because they know that because it's within my company that they know that this is a draft under development.
Right.
What I actually, because Steve and I had a conversation about this recently, and I suggested that, and this goes into that format of how we do these documents. I was going to bring up when we talk about template is to say we should be putting at the very front of all those Google Docs that are under draft, put in very big letters that this is a draft document and that we welcome your comments, but this is not an approved document until such time as the SEAC, the voting members of SEAC have voted and have accepted the document. And I think that will go a long way. That would give it a lot more of the, okay, yeah, if anybody wants to make a comment, they can make a comment, regardless of whether you're on SEAC or not. And then second is that then we won't have the potential Word document.
Right. I can put a watermark on it too when I
We'll put a watermark on.
Okay.
I was just making myself a note that it's a really good point. Thank you for bringing it up. That as John indicated, the ability to print the Google Docs and do whatever you want with them off of the web exists, right? So let's just go ahead, for safety's sake, put a giant watermark on there, draft. And I agree, John, great idea with some introductory text that indicates.
So it's on top of every single one.
Comments and a vote.
Document under development.
Yep.
If you want to make comments, please do so. But do not consider the final until such time as SEAC has finalized it and has the SEAC logo on it. And maybe that's it. You can simply say those documents with SEAC logo are the ones that are official and those without are not.
Okay, we'll circulate the language or.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, thank you for soliciting additional input.
Yeah, because you know, once you pass it around to everybody, your other staff members, it's amazing how much input other people will have. That maybe something we hadn't thought about as they read through the list. Oh, yeah, you guys kind of forgot this. But to me, it's great. The more eyes that see it, the better we're going to have.
Great. I mean, more acceptance. I think you asked for a SunPower wrap about 8 months ago, right? Yeah. And I just also good. No, it's good. So you're here. Yeah. All right.
Okay. John, you want to?
I'm not next. Charles Picard's next.
Or, excuse me, is on the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am here. Hey, everyone. That's great news to hear from Alan on the plan check and correction checklists. The inspection guidelines have been in a little bit of a holding pattern, just sort of waiting for some work to be completed on the plan check and correction lists, because we've been sort of borrowing and just correlating what's going on in that task group to this inspection guide. And I use the word guide versus checklist because this document, just for a little background for those that are new, is not intended to be as comprehensive as the correction checklist. I think it was discussed, and the reality is that the field inspections, you know, they may have much less time to get into the weeds, as Alan said. So it just sort of acts as a framework for a field inspector to be able to field verify things that should have already been ironed out in the plan check process. So it's really just verifying that the system is built as submitted and as permitted. And it does list the relevant code articles for each section. So given the timeline for the other two checklists, I think this one could be finalized at the same time, you know, for the next meeting. It's just really a few more passes for clerical errors, and just make sure that we're still in perfect alignment with the plan check and correction checklist, and this one should be good to go.
John?
Well, with the ESS FAQ information bulletin, about 90% complete. There's a couple refinements to do. We've identified exactly what it is, just hasn't been placed on there for review. But it sounds like we're going to have a trifecta of 3 documents to review at the same time, which would make a lot of sense, because I think that these 3 different documents really do work well when they're out together, because 1 is the plan check, 2 is the inspection, 3 is the putting some perspective to what's in the toolkits. Yeah. Just want to put on the screen.
Oh, that's not good.
Now,
Still getting it.
yeah. I don't know how to trick it to stop it from.
Okay.
We might be tested a break. Whatever it happens, we'll just take a break. And, so just for everyone online, just to let you know, is that the loaner laptop we're using, loaner as in it's one of the office laptops here, has decided it's on its own and it needs to have software updated at some point. And so it takes just a few minutes for it to do that. So when that happens, we'll just take a break at that point. And we don't have to close anything. It'll just close itself down and then turn itself back up.
Also, it sounds like Mustafa has dialed in. Jack is working with him to get him engaged in the call. He can hear us, but he can't speak or see the screen. So,
You might as well just tell them it's on the screen and simply just agenda.
Yeah.
So anyway, my apologies to those who made the effort to try to be on the last task group meeting for the DSS FAQ last week. Is that I was unfortunately away at a meeting, and at the meeting was when all my electronics died on me, so I was not able to take connection. So, oh well, life is fun. So I will be giving Jack a couple of proposed times. It will be short, and it will be most probably either the last Friday and next Friday, a week from tomorrow, or a week from next Monday or Tuesday, because the month of May is, and if it's not then, it will be in the first week of June, because I'm gone for the month of May.
How nice. You want to expand on why you're going the month of May, why you're leaving so long?
Yeah, I'm giving you guys an opportunity, and then I'll come back and take care of everything. No, I have an opportunity to go to Europe with my wife to go on a missions trip to Moldova, which is the poorest country in Europe, sandwiched between Romania and Ukraine, and going to spend time with my wife's sister and go to Vienna and Prague, and then go visit my sister and brother-in-law who live in Holland. So it'll be a fun trip. And I'll come back to Donald. All action on general trip. May is when it's a great time to do that.
So just so I'm clear on the timeline for these, sounds like the corrections checklist, the inspection checklist, and the FAQ. Did I hear you all say that those will be ready for review by our next monthly meeting, so in May, or our next in-person meeting? So
June 15th.
So we're talking June. What about Alan and Charles, the corrections and the inspection checklist? Or were you meaning May or June for your timeline?
We were hoping May for the corrections checklist.
And that would be the same for the inspection guide that would follow.
Great, thank you.
I can make an effort for the May.
Good. That's a pretty good movement. If we can do it in May, that'd be great. The June, when we're all face-to-face, that would be fine too. I've been able to attend a lot of the task group meetings since we've met last. I would encourage everybody to attend them. Try to get all the members active in these task groups. I'm always amazed when I listen to people in the task group. Sometimes they bring up things that I've never really thought about. Yesterday, for example, was on listening to him and the energy storage systems, battery storage systems. He brought up a couple of things that I think the whole group kind of maybe never really thought about. So it's really great hearing everybody's input, and really it's enlightening. So I want to encourage everybody to continue to participate in each of the task groups. If you're not getting an invite to the task groups and you want one, send myself an email, Jack an email, or Lindsay an email, and I'll make sure that you're getting the invites to each one of these task groups. Good. Let's go on down to item number 5.
So on item number 5 is that the NEC task group, we came up with, we first of all had expanded it just to bring those who may not remember the refresh, if you will, is that it started out as a task group that was solely focused on the TIAs in California, and we expanded the scope to, the SEAC has expanded the scope at the February meeting to simply be about NEC issues. And so what we did as a group is we identified 6 areas that would be good to work on, including making, looking to see if there's any code proposals that SEAC should consider to submit to the NEC, considering that the NEC is now, for the 2020, is now open for proposals. It doesn't preclude anybody, any of the members or non-members, from making proposals. Certainly go right ahead, but if there's something that you have an idea of a code proposal that you think should be considered, maybe we look at having SEAC be maybe the component as well. So that was 1. 2 was that we were the follow-up on the TIAs. The TIAs, we had the great fortune of having the executive director from California Building Transportation send out that bulletin. We posted that bulletin has been posted on the SEAC website, and as well as there's reference to that bulletin in the California Soil Permitting Guidebook. There was felt the need to for SEAC to put together a short document. It's about a 2-page document, a little less than a 2-page document, so it's just 1 sheet that essentially put in perspective what TIAs are, how TIAs come about, and the value of these TIAs. And maybe Jack can throw that up on the screen. You should have received an email from Jack about a couple weeks ago where for people to comment, to look at. We did a how do I best say this? It was we just went ahead and did it and asked for forgiveness later, kind of thing on this document. In that we actually put this document together and handed it out at the California Building Officials annual meeting, simply because Calvo meeting was in the week of March 20th in Newport Beach, and it was the best opportunity to be in front of as many building officials as possible in the state to give them information regarding this. And simply, and I greatly appreciate all the task owners. I think it was a great balance of, there were those from industry and those from the code enforcement that I think that we kept to just simply what the facts are and explaining what precisely the TIAs are and what they aren't. So anyway, I guess the question I would, or the question I would have to the chair is that, do I make ask if there's anybody who has any further questions or comments about this, and if can we get this approved so that we can actually, 1, post it on our website, and 2, be able to provide to for anybody that wishes to use it to go out and share it.
Again, the intent was to write this in such a way that it was quick, to the point, and in a format that that hopefully would hold the attention of any of the readers and of the specific target audience that we have, which is the target audience, frankly, is towards the building officials. To simply give them the information and ask them for them to consider the use of these. I've heard that there are a number of jurisdictions that are using the TIAs, and there are some jurisdictions that are not. And you know, certainly a jurisdiction has absolutely all the choice in the world to do what they want to do, and they have that responsibility and that authority to do so. And this is simply to provide as much information as possible for them to make those decisions.
John, I agree with you. I think the document itself gives building officials and others an opportunity to understand what the TIAs are for and why we would suggest implementing them. So it's a great document. The only question I have to the group is, as I started the discussion this morning, talking about branding our document and the layout of our documents, and my question would be, is this one of these documents that we now need to make sure meets our format? And do we really have a format? Do we need to create a format first? So those are questions we need to think about with this document and the other documents we talk about today. We want to format them in the past layout format that we have on current docs that are online.
So if I might just suggest something is that we started out with recommended practices or recommended guidelines, right? And that was the original, and it was a very it was an extremely formal process that took a particular issue and simply said, here is the issue, here is the background for the issue, and then here are recommendations of what one can do. Then we found that there was, as we went along, we were about ready to write a recommended practice for UL 2703, and then we decided at that time that it would be a better idea to have an informational bulletin. So we came up with informational bulletins, and they followed an FAQ format, which, by the way, we already had one of UL 2703. The energy storage system, storage batteries, battery backup, all that is following the same format of doing it as an FAQ format. There's two documents that were done in March that were specifically intended as more of a, I kind of characterize it as a white paper. That was, we did one that was put together that was about what SEAC is, what's the value of SEAC, and encouraging people to be involved in SEAC. And then the other was the one on the TIAs. And I suggest that it's not, the TIAs is not necessarily one that's per se a recommended practice, or I think you could force it into this shove it into this particular format we had on recommended practices, but I suggest there may be a couple of times where we might want to have a, dare I say, more straight to the point, clear document on a particular point that it's not an ongoing. The recommended practices that are an ongoing recommended practices. That are good for a very long time, in my mind. What the white paper that was up on the screen earlier that was done for the TIAs is a blip in time, in my mind. It's an informational thing as well as it's both recommended practice and informational. It's doing both.
kind of a hybrid of the two. That's why I would suggest that maybe there may be times where we might need to do that for certain types of things. And I don't think there's anything problematic. Frankly, I don't think there's a problem from a branding point of view to worry about on that.
So we pulled up on the screen one of the older documents that has what seems like was the consistent branding during this era.
Yep, the original start. Yep.
Yeah. So, John, I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. Are you saying that some documents that this group creates may not provide as long-standing guidance or recommendation as others, and so they might not be worthy or it may not be worthwhile to spend time on the branding?
Well, okay, so I'm suggesting there's three types of documents that we do.
Okay.
One document we have is that we have recommended practices, and where there's a issue, and these are recommended practices that are going to be an ongoing thing that in 80/21, 88 requirements are always there.
Sure.
For example. So therefore, a recommended practice is here's all the different things you can do to consider. And that's that.
Okay.
The second is the informational bulletins, which are essentially, so far, have been in the format of a series of FAQs. And there's no recommendation really there. It's more of just giving you answers to questions that are commonly asked.
Got it.
The third, what I'm suggesting is that the two documents that came out that were done in time for Calvo are, in my mind, more of a hybrid of a blending of those two kind of concepts. There is some recommendation, but there's some information to it. The recommended practices, we were trying to stay away from being an informational document. It was simply there's an issue, this is what we're going to do. We didn't really get into a lot about informing you and putting it in context, because there was a presumption that you actually pretty much knew what was going on there.
Okay.
So that's why I kind of refer to it as more of a hybrid.
I see.
And I would suggest that, if I was to take a recommended practice here, and the recommended practices, most of those recommended practices are like pages long each. To tell you the building official will read that will be no. And that's why I think that that we need to think about who our target audience of who we're writing to, or who we're writing that document for, needs to be taken into consideration and figure out what ought to be the format. And I do agree with you, if you don't have any guidelines of whatsoever anyway on the format. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. What does everyone want to do? What are some other thoughts we're doing here?
Hey, this is Mustafa. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Mustafa.
Sorry I couldn't get on. I was having a hard time connecting. So, and I realized that, I could hear you guys, but I couldn't talk. Regarding, Alan gave a good job as far as giving the update on the storage battery committee. And as far as the form and recommended practices, SEAC is all about giving recommended practices and giving information bulletin only. There is no other hybrid. It has to be in a form of information. We're giving information to the industry for them to be able to understand what's the issue, what are the issue statements, what are the background, what was it that we brought these issues up, and explain that rather than a white paper just saying we are interpreting the code. I didn't know SEAC was interpreting the code. Interpretation of the code is given to a building official, to me, to Steve Jones, to jurisdiction can interpret the code. And I thought we were very clear from day one that we are only here to give recommended practices or the FAQs. So these stuff that is coming out on the white papers that has been put out, that can be put in FAQ. I have no problem with FAQ, but the FAQ that on the informational bulletin. But putting a white paper out and putting 3 or 4 subjects on it, and the beginning of that is that white paper, SEAC is interpreting the codes. That is completely not what SEAC is all about. And there should be no hybrid. This is either recommended practices. What was it that brought this issue up? What is its current status? What are the key considerations? Or a FAQ. Most of these issues regarding the rapid shutdown, it is a FAQ. Does rapid shutdown is required for battery storage? Yes or no? That's a FAQ. That's it.
So I have a question, Mustafa, is that I don't recall in the white paper for the TIAs that there was any interpretation whatsoever. As I recall, all it said was that here are the TIAs, this is why they exist, this is why they are of benefit for everyone, and that here are the 2 things that a jurisdiction can do. I think there, yes, there may be in there a little bit of an encouragement for a jurisdiction to consider them because of the value of them. But other than that, I don't recall there being any interpretation in that document.
Yes, there is that white paper that I'm having a hard time with my computer this morning. That actually at the beginning, the one that talks about the rapid shutdown, the one that talks about the.
Let's question that.
Mustafa, you're talking about the other document that we'll talk about next. Charles Picard will talk about the rapid shutdown task group work on that document.
Right.
And yeah, it started out with the words, this is to provide interpretation. I did add a note back in there yesterday as a comment to maybe take that word interpretation out and put this is a document for clarification, which is fine that SEAC is doing, clarifying the code and helping everybody understand it. But I agree, yes, that the term interpretation should be removed, but that is a separate document, Mustafa.
Right. I'm sorry because I'm having a hard time with my computer, so I couldn't see what you get. But again, overall, we got 2 types of documents that we put out there, either FAQs or recommended practices. There is no hybrid, and anything between can be answered on FAQs or recommended practices. Simple. And it should be very clear to what we're trying to, what audience, of course, the audience, it doesn't have to be an audience we're trying to get this message across. This could be to whoever wants to get these informations. SEAC should be Google, SEAC on energy storage, SEAC on UL 2703, SEAC on AB 2188. And it should be nothing but a recommended practices, because this group is not in business of giving direction to where the codes and standards are about, and that's going to be given to building officials.
This is Mustafa, is that when I'm looking at the recommended practice, which was on the screen, if I look at a recommended practice is not, for example, let's take AB 2188, it's not informing you, giving you all the information about AB 2188. It's not answering a whole bunch of questions about AB 2188. It's simply saying, yeah, AB 2188 exists. briefly, it was set up. It was a law passed, and so here's the recommended practices of what you ought to do in regards to what to do about that.
Right.
On the FAQs, on the informational bulletins, we're not giving you any recommendations. What we're doing is we're simply saying, okay, let's answer these questions and let's give you this information.
That's it.
Why I said hybrid was that on this specific document, this white paper on temporary interim amendments is that it does both of those things. It both tells you it is an informational bulletin explaining, getting into the detail of what are TIAs and what are these TIAs and why they are of value. And then there is the recommended practice of here's the executive director's bulletin, informational bulletin, advising you that if you wish to use these, this is the recommended practice. You do this and this. So that's why I'm saying it's doing both. It's not doing one or the other.
Right, but John, you have to understand the state was very clear when they issued the TIA and to all the jurisdiction. We all got the email. Now we went to IAI and CalVO and explored that as well, which is good enough. Now, if we want to go ahead and explain this to building officials, who do we target? We're looking at building officials, right? Now, if the building officials, if you still see that some building officials are not recognizing that, then we could go and explain what the TIA is, and that's it. And say, hey, look, it's up to jurisdiction to either adopt those TIA and enforce it, or not. And if they want to adopt it, here, the state was very clear to how to do it. Either you got to go do an ordinance, or you got to do by virtue of modification or alteration. So, I mean, what is it that we want to tell the jurisdiction? This is targeted to a group of building officials that they all got this information bulletin from the state saying we don't recognize these TIAs, but it would be up to you guys through two ways: either adopt the local amendment for it, or do it through a modification or alteration. I'm just saying is, if you feel that there's still some building officials out there that is still struggling with that, and some of our solar installers or solar designers are having a hard time convincing the building officials, then we could go on and write a recommended practice that says, hey, look, this is what the law said, just like AB 2188. And these are the steps as the issue statement could be as easily to be there. The backgrounds could be there. All those items that we have on recommended practices on that particular white paper could fit into that recommended practices. And that would be more easier for a jurisdiction to read that and say, okay, there is a background, there is a current status, there is a key consideration, and then here are our recommendations. The SEAC is giving recommendations.
So Mustafa, I've spent quite a lot of time, probably more than I wish I could to, on the subject of TIAs. And I have found, and you know very well my connections with the building officials, and you know very well how much I'm involved with CalVO. And I found it fascinating when I was talking to a number of guys at CalVO that there are a number of building officials that still don't quite understand what a TIA is, because that is an NFPA type activity as well as an IMO, and it's not an ICC type of method. And most of the building officials are very well versed on ICC, but very little versed on NFPA or IMO on the average. And I hate to say it that blunt, but that's what I find. And then what I also find is that In fact, one of the building officials that is responsible for many jurisdictions had indicated to me, his company had indicated to me that he was like, well, yeah, I'm not gonna go through all this because, frankly, his thought was, well, TIAs are just going above and beyond what the code requires now, and so therefore, anybody can do more than they want. And I said, you don't understand then what these TIAs are. These TIAs are to relax on various requirements because of safety reasons. And once I put that in that simple form for him, then it was like, light bulb. And so the intent of the style of this writing, while I can appreciate that it is not titled recommended practices or has, and all the elements are there, and if it is the will of the membership to put this into to push it into that specific format, certainly can do that. But I suggest that all the elements of a recommended practice, as well as all the elements of an FAQ, informational bulletin, are within this document. And that nowhere on this document, I'm sending any other document than this one. This document is straight to the point.
I agree with you. As far as jurisdiction, some of them are trying to ignore or not even bothering to understand what TIA is and what's the history behind TIA and how it gets done. I understand. But wouldn't it be better that if us as a recommended practice is saying these are the issue statements, these are the backgrounds, because it's been about almost 3, 4 months, 5 months since the state issued that bulletin to all of us, and go and explain, and this is what the issue is, and here is different ways. For example, in LA County, if you want to do a center main panel with that TIA, as long as you show them on the plan and show that calculation on the plan, I'm okay with it. I know some jurisdictions that are asking for you to go and file a paper, modification or alteration paper, and pay up to $500 for them to consider that TIA or that center main without having the opposite end or having the opposite end. You know what I'm saying? So wouldn't it be easier for us to go in and make it recommended practices saying these are the issues and these are the different ways that you can convince a building official, or these are the ways you can convince or submit your plans or your application to building departments? Wouldn't that be easier?
Okay, good. Mustafa, thank you for your input. I think that this group needs to decide how we want to move forward on these documents. And so I'm going to present it to the group. What is the will of this group for? And I'm going to talk just specifically on this document right now, the white paper that is up on the screen regarding the TIAs. Is it the wish of this group to go back and reformat it into the recommended practices? Or for this document, do we want to review it, comment on it, or approve it the way it is for this style of a document? Or do we want to form a task group and come up with recommended practices on the way we're going to have documents going forward?
I wouldn't, on that last part, I wouldn't say necessarily recommended practices going forward. I would say more as it would probably be, actually, regardless of what we do, I think it would be good to have, dare I say, a very simple, very quick style manual of things that we would want to have in our documents, what we don't want to have in our documents, like, for example, make, crystal clear, we're not going to say interpretation, we're not going to, those kind of things, I think would be very much of value.
we've never had that before. We're considering as we go along making more and more documents, that would be a very helpful thing. And I think also in that style manual, by the way, I think that it would be also good to have clarity as to what Chris was talking about of how we can the draft and the reviewing and commenting, and the clarity of the need that it's not an official document until it is approved by the committee.
If I could throw out one other potential path forward in that CSV, we have a corporate marketing team that does, branding guidelines. Personally, but my team is. We could draft something that addresses all of these concerns and put it to the group for review and feedback to save a task group. Yeah, just to save a task group from having to generate it from scratch. I mean, I'm sure we've got some templates we can draw from.
Can I make a motion first of all then to that we ask CSE to provide a straw man of a shall we say style guidelines, document style guidelines or document guidelines, manual type, whatever.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second and a motion. Discussion.
Well, we have to keep in mind we're not an SDO. Or documents are not a standard or mandatory. They're always a recommendation.
Correct. But that's why that's why I'm suggesting guidelines, not necessarily manual.
Exactly.
And so I would appreciate if we called it a guideline, and then just and I agree with you totally. As an SEO, I totally agree with you that this is not an SEO. Right. But on the flip side, I can appreciate what Mustafa is saying is that if you have documents that each document appears that it's written by completely somebody else, that if there's not a consistency, that there's a benefit to having some degree of consistency to what your documents look like and feel like and appear like.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. We also have to keep in mind that they're all guidelines. If we write them in a way that we don't write them like a mandatory requirement or a standard.
And that should be one of the items that is in that guideline. That we need to bear that in mind.
Okay, so I have a motion and I have a second on the style document writing guidelines. All in favor of pursuing CSEs to create a strawman document, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Now, if I go back to what do we do with this document? Does this languish, or does the task group need to go back and reformat it, or are we able to move ahead as is? The only concern I have is that I know that there are a number of people that have been asking me for copies of this. I've been resisting it simply because it had not formally been before the committee for its content. I don't think there's any controversy in the content of this document. If there is, I would love to hear it.
And I agree. I think this document is important to get out into the hands of building officials.
Yeah.
It's I think that there's a crucial need for it to happen now. And I think that maybe this document my suggestion this document goes forward as we come up with our writing manual. But that's my opinion. I want to hear from the group. Well, just because I say it goes forward, that doesn't mean it does. This is a consensus group. And so I want to hear from everybody in the room and online what you would like to do with this document at this time. I open it to the floor.
I'd like to see it go forward just because we see it out there.
Jim Cahill, thank you. I'd like to see it go forward. Mark?
Yeah, I agree. It's important that this document get out there, and I think it's in a format that's adequate, represents SEAC
quite well. So I recommend that we move forward.
I agree. Move forward. I have questions. I'm sure the task group conveners are all wondering what happens to all of their documents that are in 80% completion format right now as well, right? So that represents some significant rework if we adopt these style guidelines. You know, in short order, that's a separate discussion, but there's a lot of work that are in those multi-page documents that aren't.
There is, as far as the energy storage plan check correction was Mustafa and the group did put in going back to the recommended practices, so we added that at the top so we can start filling those portions out, knowing that we wanted to go back to some kind of a recommended practice document.
I think that's great. Just looking at the two documents from a style standpoint and a branding, not branding standpoint, but from a consistency standpoint, to your point earlier, Steve, about building officials being willing to sit down and read something, I think we have a heck of a lot better chance if it looks the same on every document and they can just scan down and find what they need rather than, different formats. So I completely support, this initiative.
Yeah, I'm sure we're a few months away from adopting a styling guideline.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't hold our documents for till then. So I'm sure we'll make a judgment call at that time. Do we want to go back and revise all the existing documents or adopt them from that point forward? Right. So I don't think it should. And also the technical content isn't going to change. It's the format, it's the style. So I think we should be okay.
Any comments from those online?
This is Pete. I'm in favor of the document as it is.
Anybody else online?
This is Alan, also supporting the document as is.
Steve, can you explain yourself what I mean to go forward? Are we going to be posting that on SEAC website?
I didn't hear the quote. Can you repeat the question?
Mustafa, I'm hoping that it would be posted on the website because I would hope that people would be able to use it. Like you said, I know I've been contacted because they keep on getting pointed to me because of being the task group chair, is that I've had several installers to come to me and say, hey, can I use this? Can I use this? I've got issues today. I've got issues right now where it would really be helpful that it's not just me saying, gee, it would be nice if you would consider the TIAs, but to have a group that is a consensus group that has had all stakeholders involved in the development agreeing that this is a necessary and appropriate way to go.
John, but it's not complete. I just don't understand. Well, we should form it, complete it, put input to it. What is it that different jurisdictions could do? Put some sample of what jurisdictions are doing right now.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the last part. I mean, you're saying it's giving examples of what they can do?
Yeah.
Again, I mean, looking at this document, it has all that in there, does it not?
No, but it says that you can use either provide an amendment to your current city or the county code, or go through an alternative way of accepting that. A lot of jurisdictions they don't have the time or the energy to go through and providing ordinance, and they just want to maybe quickly, if they know that they could quickly do it through a modification or alteration, and we could actually provide that for them, say, hey, you could do it, and here is different cities are doing it, or the county or different jurisdictions are doing it. I mean,
well, I have found. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, John.
What I have found is that there actually is a third alternative that is not discussed in this document. And the only reason it's not discussed in this document is because technically it's not quite kosher. But there are jurisdictions I know that are simply going ahead and accepting these TIAs and utilizing these TIAs without having done an ordinance, without having done the official exception on approval, the formal approval, because frankly, bottom line, who's going to challenge them? Who is going to say, gee, I think this is really wrong that you're now allowing it to be 30 seconds rather than 10 seconds on the rapid shutdown response? There's not going to be anybody who's going to challenge it at all. So it's kind of an interesting point on that score. So, but I mean, that would be if we were to really go down that helpful path of recommended practices. We could say, oh, by the way, if you're good with it, just do it, and just go ahead and do it, and because who's going to challenge you? But I would bet none of us would want to put that in writing.
I understand.
Especially the jurisdictions that do it.
Don't forget the jurisdiction will do whatever the way they read and interpret the code, including the TIAs. So that has to be very clear up front. As much as
I think the jurisdictions can pick however they enforce it. For example, the city of Oceanside, until just January 1st, was enforcing the 2011 NEC code, which didn't talk about any center-fed projects or anything like that, 120% rules and things like that. So why was it ever brought up as a code problem in the state of California? Because it's not addressed until the 2014 code, which we're on now. And so we never really enforced it in the city of Oceanside. Never saw a problem with center-fed panels. Really what amazes me is the center-fed panel is the most prevalent panel installed in the state of California. We've been doing PD installations in the state of California since the 60s. You don't find center-fed panels burning up in the state of California. You don't find white papers on showing you that they're burning up in the state of California. I've always asked people, please just show me a heat gun showing me that the bus bar is heated up and is about to be destroyed, and I would change my mind. But I haven't even seen any of that. So I think it's good for some jurisdictions that are now understanding more of the TIAs and that it's acceptable. This is a great document for the building officials that have had a problem accepting it, any of these issues.
So what's interesting, if I may share just I've been having an email correspondence over the last 2 days with an installer. The installer is not here. The installer has not been involved in this group. But he was saying that in regards to center-fed, he's been having a decade of time with a number of communities with the center-fed panel board with the TIAs. He's got, when he talks to them, he's been able to, several of them to get them to agree. But then what he's finding is that some of them are saying, oh, by the way, that they want arc fault studies and they want engineering stamped calculations, all that. And it's like, really? So what he says in here is that it's the way I'll read just what he says. He says, I don't think they understand that Section D doesn't limit us to 120% of the bus bar capacity. That was just a catch-all provision that basically says anything with engineer certification is acceptable if you don't use item A, B, or C. So back there, but it goes on from there. But it's very interesting that, again, it's a if we go down, first of all, again, I'd say that we don't have guidelines yes, we have precedents, but we don't have guidelines of writing. And if the document is providing what some help that that's needed yesterday, it would seem like a thing that we should consider. But
let's do this. Let's go through the document, review the document, see if there's any changes in this document as far as the way it's written. And we can probably just walk through it going through the top. John, you want to walk us through this document? And then if we can note any changes as we go through, if there are any.
It's so long ago that we wrote this. So basically, what we are doing at the beginnings, we're referencing the informational bulletin right up front, so people know of that. And and then what we did was we included the statement that this is for informational purposes, and it's definitely what happened there.
Looking at us in real time.
Anonymously.
So I'm not sure what, I don't know what that did.
Yeah, if you reject it, move something.
Okay, so that was interesting. Because it would have taken out completely the concept of what that statement was, which was that the final approval is the authority having jurisdiction, recognizing the authority. And I don't think we've used that phrase before in all of our other documents. The next section here is simply to explain what that there are 4 TIAs and why it was trying to address in timeline format. It was trying to address why the TIAs were not a part of the California Electrical Code, and why because there a lot of people ask that they don't understand why they weren't included as part of what was adopted by the state. And the fact was that these TIAs came on were adopted by NSCA after the CEC was adopted and published. So that's why it's the way it is. So that's what that first section is. What are the TIAs is to, bottom line, say this is I've got the attention of the building official for just a few moments. I'm going to just the intent is simply to real quick put in perspective what each one of the 4 TIAs does, and then they can click on the informational bulletin. They can get all for deeper dive and for all the details. But this is the I've got a few moments to let you know what they are. This is what they are. And then the next section is how to use the TIAs, and then this makes reference to the California Building Standards Commission and to the document and to the formal method in which that the TIAs are to be allowed to be used. Of course, like I'd indicated, there are those that I know that are accepting, but that would not be appropriate for us to put in writing because that would be contrary to what is written in law. And the next section, how are TIAs developed? That's primarily for the benefit of those who want to understand, well, how are TIAs developed? You know, are they just something that is it just a staff function? No, it's the code making panel that does it, and it goes through the Standards Council, and there is a very specific process for it. All that's there on this part is directly, actually, it's shamelessly plagiarized from NFPA's website. And just for the record, is that Tim McClintock, who is the electrical specialist for NFPA that is responsible for the western part of the United States, I specifically asked Tim, actually asked Tim's comments on the entire document, and he had, all his comment was, looks great, I especially love the wording you got me grabbed from my website. So that was Tim's response. And then the more information is simply to acknowledge that there may be more information available on SEAC, as always, on SEAC's website. The one thing, the last line on there where it says an ordinance is provided from a major jurisdiction for those who want to adopt. That's euphemistically saying the model ordinance is what City of San Diego used, and they were gracious and more than willing to provide that to us. The only reason it hasn't been posted yet is simply because I've been back and forth with Jack on this. I realized I had not gone back to Tim McClintock at NFPA to make sure that we don't have any copyright issues with that today. So, because there is copyright material of NFPA's that is within that ordinance.
I think Ali Tall was looking at that issue.
Ollie's already gotten his release. I just wanted to make sure that, and Tim said, oh, it's not my area of expertise. He had told me that he was going to check on with other staff to make sure there's no problem. But I haven't heard back. Is there anything in the content that the words that are used that anybody's concerned would imply or infer anything more than what is said?
Hopefully everybody's had a chance to read the document and go through the document.
That's why I asked. That's why, as the task group chair, I asked Jack to send it out as early as he did.
Any comments from anybody online? I'll entertain a motion at this time to approve this document to go forward and be placed on the SEAC website in this style.
Motion to approve it to be put on the website.
I have a motion from Jim Hill. Entertain a second. Okay, Hill, sorry. Second from Gilbert. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The motion carried. This document will be placed on the SEAC website once John receives final approval from
we can post this. It's a model ordinance, and if they have questions about it, we'll take care of that.
Okay. Good job. Good job, guys. I think this is really good that we're going to be able to get this out there. I think this document is going to be used a lot. I always end up using documents like these to educate installers when they come to the town and they don't understand that, you know, they might be able to use 120% on these electrical system. So I always like at the counter to take the opportunity to educate. I think our job as AHJ is we're educators. The more we educate, the better we get compliance. And so great opportunity here. I'm glad we've moved this forward. Thank you, John, for all the work and your task group. Appreciate that.
I appreciate all the work the task group members. There's quite a lot of work from a lot of task group members.
Good.
Hey, John, one quick question. From just so I understand, the initial time that you proposed this TIA, because we really got on this, I think it was last summer, to the time that it was published. What was that? What kind of time frame was that?
Way too long.
I was just curious, is that indicative of what we normally see?
Oh, for TIAs?
Yeah.
No, that wasn't unusual. That was actually at the tail end, frankly, though, of obtaining a TIA, because right now you could be seeking a TIA on the 2017 code. You can. It's all the way up to the. See, I'm trying to remember what the breakoff is. Is that you can only do the TIA in between codes. You cannot. You can do it all the way up until the next code is published. So that means you could be putting them in up to probably 2020 for the TIAs on the 17th, or at least up to 2019. But it can't be something that it cannot be something that was proposed to the previous code that you weren't fortunate. Okay. It has to be something where it was clearly identified as there is a technical merit and there is an emergency nature, and it was something that was either because something got put in, it screwed up something else, and so therefore that inadvertently that nobody saw it until they saw it printed in toto, or that something completely, that was never discussed in the code cycle, and somebody realized, oh my God, we're having these issues, and here are the issues.
6 months.
Well, you're talking about the NFPA TIA?
Yes.
How long it takes to get a TIA?
I mean, those,
the processing of a TIA is fairly quick, actually.
Well,
in what they do.
yeah, you have to meet their cycles on when the code councils meet.
Correct.
So you can.
Which is like 3 times a year.
Yeah. So I was looking back at some old emails here, and it was, I mean, the drafts, the proposals were put in April of last year. So they were worked on 2 months before that, written. And then August is when that code council met. So that's when they were approved in August. And then the code came out in October.
Okay. Item number 6. Update on the rapid shutdown task group work. Discussion of the document, and that's Charles.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I'll just start by giving sort of an overall update on that task group. Through the meetings we've had, we decided to sort of split up into work up into 2 separate documents. One being a white paper or informational covering rapid shutdown requirements in general. That outline is still very much a work in progress. I won't be sharing that today, but we just as a status update, we've got that skeleton set up and a good foundation for, I think, what's going to be a very valuable piece of information. Give some guidance on what rapid shutdown requirements are, and we won't we won't be delving into the world of interpretations, just kind of stating the facts as they exist in the 2014 code, and cover the big ticket items, array boundaries, labeling, disconnect locations, that sort of thing. So all the nuts and bolts. And I think that one will come together fairly quickly. We've got a ton of comments from that task group that need to be incorporated, and the formatting needs to be cleaned up. So there's still some work to be done there, but it's moving along. I think it's going to be a good document to have. We're definitely seeing, at least from my perspective, a lot of confusion surrounding rapid shutdown. And I think it'll be good to have the requirements spelled out and a list of resources for folks to be able to do some research on their own and get a better handle on, why rapid shutdown exists and what the specific requirements are. So looking forward to getting that work done. So that's a quick update there. This document that you see on the screen is the second document that we've been working on that doesn't necessarily cover rapid shutdown in general, but addresses a more urgent concern that's come up since the adoption of the 2014 code, and something that we're seeing, statewide jurisdictions struggling with, because California is just so saturated with solar. We're seeing more often than you might think situations where we're having new systems installed alongside existing PV systems that were permitted and installed under the prior code, 2011 code, where rapid shutdown was not required. So as AHJ's sort of struggle to make sense of that and how those two systems can peacefully coexist, we're seeing that some misunderstandings or maybe misinterpretation of the NEC is forcing modification of existing systems, and that modification of the existing system could then trigger the jurisdiction to apply the 2014 requirements or 2016 CEC requirements to the existing system and actually require installers to upgrade that system. So that's become kind of a hot button issue and has been problematic. So definitely understand the sensitivity to issuing a document from SEAC that could be construed as interpretation. I think we tried to stay true to the mission statement here and stick just to the facts, and really just kind of revisit what is already sort of long-standing interpretation of code, and really just kind of put some clear and concise language together on what is and what is not required of existing systems when new systems are installed alongside those existing systems. So I'm not sure if we want to go line item by line item, but the document itself is broken up into a few different main categories. This just starting with kind of a description of what I just described, the problem statement, if you will, in that we have, when we have two different systems, we might need to define what a system is, and then sort of describe what's happening when we have multiple systems installed on the same site, and just kind of clarify that one or more PV systems are actually allowed to be installed on the same premises, and they would not necessarily need to be aggregated or combined into a single system. And really that's the trick here, is when jurisdictions force that modification or force that change, that's what's in some folks' minds triggering the need to take the old system and bring it up to current code. So the ripple effects of that, the two main ones are the system's point of connection. so all our 705 rules, and rapid shutdown. Now, so for the point of connection, that is specifically what would constitute a modification. If we, for example, say have an existing system and, there's a backfeed breaker installed in the main panel, but that backfeed breaker, say, is taking up all the space, or, we install a second system on a, detached accessory structure, such as a garage, that sort of thing. If we interpret the code in such a way that says that those two systems would need to be combined into the same system, that would preclude the use of that garage subpanel as a legitimate point of interconnection, and the code's pretty clear that PV systems can be installed at any distribution equipment on the premises, so that there's really no requirement that would say that those two systems would need to be combined or aggregated. So we've run into situations, and I've heard this from other installers and the other folks on this task group, that systems that would otherwise not need to be modified are being forced to be modified, and then that modification is triggering that existing system needing to be brought up to code. So the two things would be that point of interconnection triggering the modification, and then rapid shutdown is the sort of big ticket item that certain HJs are requiring the existing system to be brought up to code, which is problematic. The technology just might not be practical or even possible to retrofit an existing system with a compliant rapid shutdown system. So the intent of this is just to lay all that out, as facts, and let the HJ make up their mind, but at the same time, sort of put it in a easily digestible manner, just a few page document, just laying the facts out and letting the HJ decide. So the summary, I think does a good job of describing what the document's intent is, and really just lays out the facts. So towards the end there, you'll see the summary bullet points. If you could go ahead and scroll down. So I think this is what I mean when I feel like we're sticking to the mission statement here, is that these don't feel like interpretations to me. They feel like just reading the code out loud. So the definition of a PV system hasn't changed in the 2016 California Electric Code. Some are going under this false premise that because the definition is new, and that there are all these ripple effects that follow from that new definition, and it's not a new definition. It's been there for decades. One or more PV systems are allowed on the same premises. Individual PV systems may be connected to any distribution equipment on the premises. Only the codes adopted at the time of application for a permit apply. That's straight from the California Building Code. There's an acknowledgement that if there is a legitimate modification, alteration, or expansion of an existing system, it is true that could legitimately trigger the application of requirements of the newly adopted code. So I think it's important to have that acknowledgement in there. If there is a modification, that's very, and that really would be up to the HJ to decide what constitutes a modification. But the main concern, and the thing that triggered this document is that if we have individual system outputs, they're not required to be combined or aggregated, which forces the modification of an existing system that would otherwise remain unchanged. So, I mean, if there's anyone in the group that feels like this is crossing a line and landing on the side of interpretation, It doesn't feel that way to me, and it didn't come up in the group discussions, but certainly open hearing that feedback. But the intent here today was to try to get this document blessed by the group in order to have this published as well. In contrast to the larger, more in-depth document, again, this one was put together to address a certain, with a sense of urgency, a topic that's coming up right now. So appreciate you all taking a look and giving it some consideration.
So Charles, thank you so much for doing a great job on your group. But again, wouldn't that be here for us to explain more what we're trying to get the message across? For example, multiple system. Wouldn't it be better to go and indicate what started this? What's the issue? What's the statement issue? And what are we recommending other than we just copy pasting the code?
You're a little bit quiet. Could you speak up maybe or get a little bit closer to your microphone? We have you turned up all the way, but
So Charles, did you hear what I said? I said thank you so much for your great job. I think that's it. It's a great job that you have done. But again, can you put that into more what we have done before and give examples and give people direction rather than just copy pasting the code and says what the code says? It's just a matter of if I got multiple subpanels, at what point can I add more PV, or if I have existing PV, at what point will it be showing like a line diagram or explaining that you start adding your PV connections from the sub panel all the way to your main panel, and as long as you don't exceed what the 705.12 tells you, you should be okay. Wouldn't that be easier to understand?
It could. Just to give you a little background, we were very conscious of not trying to give too specific of sort of a problem statement, just because there just could be some feelings hurt, because we have seen this issue come up sort of spontaneously in different areas of the state, but I will say that there was sort of a concentrated showing of this interpretation, and it was due to a document that was circulated prior. So we were just conscious of not having this seem too much like a personal rebuttal or tit for tat sort of dialogue. And it's a good point. We could sort of go down the road of having a teaching document on how to apply the code in general, but I think we were trying to address a very specific scenario, which is new system on the same property as an old system, and what would constitute a modification, and what and the fact that they can be two separate systems. So the group seemed to think that, or agree that it was appropriate to copy and paste some code, just to sort of show that we are trying to stay away from interpreting or bending the code to our will. I think it really backs up the fact that we're just trying to state facts here.
I don't think by you showing how it's done, you're interpreting the code, because if you just tell me, if somebody comes to my counter and says, oh, I can have a multiple system, and I say, oh yeah, that's perfect, yeah, I see it, but you're going to have to show it to me how you're doing it. And if you don't give that direction, people are going to say no. If you provide a 40 amp breaker at the panel down at your sub panel or down below, that means you're done. You cannot have any more. In reality, you can. It all depends to the different conditions. So I know that, but not all the inspectors and building officials know that. And
Yeah, and this is also not meant to be a substitute for a full plan set. So, the installer, it's on the installer on their plan set to show the new system, and then show any existing equipment that would have an impact on the ability to install the new system. So I think I understand where you're saying where, a plan checker would want to see on the plans that there is an existing system to be able to make sure that, the two systems together, the combined output or the aggregated output is not going to cause a hazard or a code violation, to make sure that the existing distribution equipment can actually handle that new system. So I think it's it's assumed that there's going to be a plan set that includes all the relevant information. I certainly would expect us to give you that sort of plan set.
Can I ask you at this time, our computer's going to go off. We're going to have to shut it down and restart it up. Everybody will have to re-log on. So I think at this time would be a good time to take a break for lunch and then come back in, say, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, log back on, and we'll start right where we left off. If that's okay, Charles?
Yeah, that sounds great.
And Mustafa, will you still be available to be part of the discussion?
Yes, of course.
All right, thank you. So we'll adjourn for lunch. It's 11:30 now. Let's try to get back by 12 o'clock. Log back on 5 to 12, and we'll get back to it. Thanks.
We do have lunch. We'll be right back.
Pretty good.
Okay.